I'm Sandra Nicholson, and this is Enter the Room. And our special guest for this evening is Mr. Brad Brewer, who's a master puppeteer. I'm going to read you some of his bio. Mr. Brewer, who trained under Jim Henson, creator of the Muppets, has decades of experience in all aspects of puppet theater, including design, sculpture, painting, and performing. As a founder of the New York City Puppet Troupe, the Brewery Troupe, which was launched in 1973, Brad used his skills and creativity to interpret African American literature, music, and humor through the art of puppet theater. A collection of his puppets is housed at the Smithsonian National Museum of American History in Washington, D.C. Puppets from the production of Duke's Place was also featured last year, April 22, at the Museum of the City of New York in Manhattan. Brad was born in D.C., but he grew up in the Bronx. And he went to college at Pratt Institute in Brooklyn. And there he began to hone his skills even more. As he puts it, he learned of people like Sandy Becker, Chuck McCain, and his hero was Bill Baird, who was a premier puppeteer in the 1960s. Those are his puppets in the movies, The Sound of Music. He said he loved the style and he wasn't restricted. He worked in all mediums, marionette, hand puppets, and shadow puppets, and everything else. He said he had a chance to meet Bill at the Hudson Theater on Broadway when he was 9 years old. And he put his arm around his shoulder and showed him backstage. And from that moment on, it changed Brad's entire life. I'm going to bring him on now, and he'll continue to tell his story. If you have any questions, if you have anything that you want to ask him, just leave it in the chat or let me know, and then I'll bring you on, because I can bring each person on individually if you want to talk to him directly. Okay? So hold on. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Hi, Brett. Welcome into the room.
All right.
How are you doing today?
Good.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So I was just reading a bit of your bio to our viewers this evening. And as I read some of your story, and I can't help but go back to, you know, what motivated you to get into puppets? I mean, I know you told me that it started when you were a child, but what did you see? What was the spark? I mean, what was the initial thing that got your attention to where you wanted to become a puppeteer?
Well, I was very young, and I don't remember more than the fact that I watched it on television, and there was something about it that fascinated me. And I just started mimicking it. I particularly liked ventriloquists, and there was one that was on all the time, and I would mimic it with a toy that I had. And without me asking, my mother bought me a ventriloquist dummy for Christmas, and that started me on it and just made me watch more and more. So it was just something that was fascinating to me, and it was just something that I had an opportunity, due to the support of my mother, to really explore it at that young age.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So when you said you started from like when you were young, did you ever put any puppet shows on as a kid, or, you know, did the other children in the neighborhood find out about it, or, you know, how did that all come about?
Well, I was living in Soundview Projects at the time, so our neighborhood was the projects. And
Okay.
the ventriloquism led to other puppets. It may have been maybe another 2 years or so before I started getting into hand puppets and marionettes. And it started because my relatives would buy the puppets for me on my birthday. I had an uncle who was an architect who made a puppet stage, and I would do the shows in my bedroom. And eventually we started inviting kids that lived in our building to come and see the show. And it was a campaign because we had to convince my mother to let these kids come in. But we would have maybe about 20 kids packed into my bedroom watching a puppet show that may last for about an hour and a half or so.
Nice, nice. And did you all like raise money from doing that, or?
I think on a good day we made about $10 or something like that.
Oh,
We
that was
sold
nice.
cookies, and we were motivated by the Little Rascals when they put on shows. So we had that kind of operation. My sisters manned the box office, and we had different charges of admission. The best seats were sitting on my bed, so we charged more for that. And I would pay them, and I would pay my friend. My best friend would help me put on the show. And the rest of the money I would use to buy art supplies for the next show.
Nice, nice. Now, what was your first live puppet show that you went to attend that like really motivated you?
It was Bill Baird. Bill Baird was the puppeteer for the Sound of Music, the film The Sound of Music. And he was constantly on television. He was on the Ed Sullivan Show, the Today Show. He was constantly on, and I just liked his style of puppetry. And I had a chance to meet him again. My mother saw an ad about a show that he was doing on Broadway, and just took my sisters and I down to see it. And we waited until the theater emptied out, and we went backstage, and I met Bill Baird.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
And he sat down. Did he say anything to you that really stuck with you at that time, or?
Well, it wasn't so much a philosophy as much as it was a willingness to listen. I told him about my shows, and you know, he was very attentive. And you know, when I came in backstage, I wasn't really sure what I was supposed to do. My sisters and my mother were with me, but my mother backed off. Bill Baird's wife, who was also a puppeteer in the show, walked me over to Bill Baird and introduced me. And for the next 20 minutes or so, he showed me all the puppets. He let me work some of the puppets, pull some of the strings. And that experience stayed with me. I was really inspired by that. And it's nice, you know, when you meet a hero as a little kid, it really goes a long way when, you know, they take time just to listen to you and encourage you. And that was something that I always took away from that. And we practice that even now when we do shows.
That's awesome. So after that meeting from you meeting Bill Baird, then you eventually got another puppet, right? And that your mom, because your first puppet, you told me that you didn't even ask for it. She was just observant and got it for you because she saw. And I always say that it's important that parents take keen attention to what attracts their children, what gets their attention.
Absolutely.
And then from there, because that's, you seeing what they're gifted at. And then I personally feel you should build upon that. And that's what your mother did. I mean, during that time, she had the fortitude to, in the hindsight, to say, you know, this is what he likes. And she supported you and encouraged you in that. So I applaud her for that. From that point on, you know, you said, I remember we were talking, you said you had gotten another puppet, and that was your only, you didn't want any more toys, but a puppet, that was it.
Well, I had gotten the dummies, the ventriloquist dummies came at different sizes. There was a small one that had a string coming out of the neck. There was another one that you put your hand in the back and you grabbed onto a stick to turn the head laterally.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a third size that was about the size of a 3-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
And he had hair, and he had eyes that opened and closed and went from left to right. That dummy cost $50. And by then, I was about 10 years old, and I wanted that dummy. And by then, my mother and my whole family knew what was up with me. And
Mm-hmm.
she told me, well, I'll get you this, but that's all
Mm-hmm.
you're going to get, because I did have
Right.
other sisters and stuff.
Right.
I was cool, fine, you know, but I
Right.
had a family that, you know, they gave me other stuff also, but
Right.
that's all I needed. And the ventriloquist dummy was my, I made money from that, doing birthday parties, talent shows. And that was another way to finance the marionette shows that I would be doing in my bedroom.
Cool. That's so fascinating. That's pretty cool. That young and you're already thinking business-wise.
It was
So
business, but also it was something that I wanted to do. And my mother was an artist. She was a librarian, but she was an artist.
mm-hmm.
And she supported all of that. So going to an art store to buy paints and drawing paper and paper big enough to make scenery, she was supportive of that. And I felt good about being able to buy it. I mean, she would put in a few more dollars, but, you know, this was something that I wanted to do. And I realized early by financing it, I could do it.
Cool. So then eventually, okay, you go on to high school, and there was a period where, there was a period, I see questions are coming in. There was a period where, when you went into high school, did you still keep up with it then, or did you kind of pull back? Because, you know, now you're getting older, sports, you know, there's girls, or were you still focused?
Well, I did stop. I played a lot of basketball in middle school, and eventually I went to a military school. I went to an African-American military academy. It was the only one that ever existed in this country, St. Emma's Military Academy. And when I went there, by the time I got there, I was like 15, and I had already stopped with the puppets. I actually gave away the puppets to a community center, and
Wow.
Because I was through with it. And
Wow.
you know, I started becoming interested in girls. I felt puppets would kind of crash my style, whatever style I had, you know.
Right.
But I had other interests at the time. I continued as an artist. I continued painting and drawing, but puppets was something I just put aside for a while.
Oh, hi, Ava. Somebody else came into the room. Oh, cool. So then, okay, so then you were still doing your things artistically, but you were kind of stepping back a little. And then once you went into college, you start picking it back up again, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Then.
I had a teacher. One of my teachers was the guy who made the Big Bird puppet for Sesame Street, based on Jim Henson's design. And he just encouraged us to, and it was, I don't even remember the type of class it was. It wasn't labeled as a puppetry class. But we had an opportunity, I had an opportunity to build a puppet, and he critiqued it. And the next thing I knew, I was making another one, and pretty soon I was making more. And that just kind of got me into it. But I had a desire to get back into puppets earlier. I was a member at one time of the Black Panther Party, and I had an idea of doing puppets based on the lives and the legacy of Huey Newton and Bobby Seale.
Wow.
And I went to them and asked, not them personally, but I went to the leadership to ask if I could do that, but you know, they really didn't see what I saw, so I never really fulfilled that. But the thing was back in my mind again about puppetry, and I started thinking about that.
Wow. So then, okay, so then you said you was working with the Black Panthers. Now that I know, how did you manage to, I mean, did you like do some of their art, or, I mean, even though you didn't do a puppet story for them, but you were doing other things for them in terms of Something creative, that is.
I was the lieutenant of information for the New York chapter of the Black Panther Party, and I did a lot of political drawing. If anyone ever saw the Black Panther newspaper, the back page was it was always an illustration by Emory Douglas, who was the party's Minister of Culture, and it was political, and he inspired everybody to be a revolutionary artist, where your artwork told a story and had a solution to the issues that we as Black people were facing. And so I wound up having a lot of my illustrations in the newspaper, and that had an everlasting effect on my approach to puppetry, being able to not just do stories based on, you know, European fairy tales, but being able to use puppetry as a vehicle, as to inform and hopefully educate on some level.
Right. Awesome. Awesome. So after you finished, what was your first professional job after you finished college in terms of puppetry, you know, doing puppeteering?
Well, I started the Brewery Puppet Troupe, which at that point was called the Afro-American Puppet Troupe. And I started in school in my sophomore year. And so we were doing professional shows throughout that time. In fact, some of the students that were working with me were actually able to get credit in the school through a program called University Without Walls. And so we were doing shows. We performed many times at the Billie Holiday Theater. Marjorie Moon was the artistic director, the executive director of the Billie Holiday Theater in Bed-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn. It was a location that was founded by Robert Kennedy just before he was assassinated in the late 60s. And it was something that the Kennedy family continued to support throughout the 70s and 80s and probably now. I mean, it was a major thing that he did in hopes of renewing and bringing culture to an area that was going through a lot of changes at that time. So we performed at the Billie Holiday Theater, and Marjorie Moon gave us an outlet to explore different parts of what we wanted to do with puppets. We had a lot of stories. Some of them were controversial. I think one of them we had was the Jackson 5 meets Malcolm X, and Harriet Tubman. So she gave us this outlet to experiment, and it was something that was very crucial for us, you know, and we got paid. So it was when I graduated from Pratt, we just kind of continued doing that. We went into a different format, but we continued.
Nice. Wow. So and while, you know, in your journey and in your career, especially starting out, how did you finance, you know, your materials? Did you just raise money? Do you guys did fundraising, or you just did it came from doing the shows, or, you know, how did that? How were you able to sustain? Because doing any kind of production gets expensive,
right?
And so, especially when you're starting out. So, you know, what was the mechanism that you guys used?
Well, we were a not-for-profit organization. Excuse me. And we were mentored by Ellis Hazlip. Ellis Hazlip was a producer, excuse me, a producer in New York who had programs on public television on the PBS. And one show that he did was Soul. And Soul was a program that featured maybe a group like Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes in the first half hour, and Nikki Giovanni in the second half hour. Miles Davis in one half hour, and Kathleen Cleaver in the other hour. It was very progressive. And I met the program's associate producer, Anna Horsford. And Anna Horsford became our first manager and showed me how to registered with the state to become a nonprofit organization, and we were funded by the New York State Council on the Arts and the National Endowment. And so that, along with what we made from doing the shows, we were able to finance our shows.
Nice. Very nice. So when you came up with the Crowtations, was that before you started working with Jim Henson, or was that afterwards?
It was around the same time. I think the Crows went through several renovations. They first appeared in a show that we were doing called Harriet Tubman, and the Crows were in the programs, and they would divert the attention of the bounty hunters that would come looking for Harriet. And so they were like, they were necessary figures on the Underground Railroad. And so every time they appeared in the show, the audience would just like them. And so after we finished doing that, I rebuilt them, and they became just characters, and they evolved into the singing group called the Crowtations. But this was around the time that I was at Pratt. I met Jim Henson through Kermit Love, who was my instructor at Pratt, who invited me to Sesame Street, and which was filmed in New York. And this was in the mid-'70s. And so the Crowtations just kind of evolved. But they were, Jim liked them, and gave us a grant a couple of times to do shows. He really was supportive of people, of puppeteers. It wasn't something that was really publicized, but he was very supportive of puppeteers, and especially if you were doing something that was different from what he was doing. He was just very supportive. He was very instrumental in all of us, not only the live shows, which they didn't really do a lot of, but also on television. You know, he was our best friend and our leader at that time.
Wow. So while working with him, you eventually, or you ended up over at Sesame Street, working with Mr. Rogers, correct?
Well, two different shows.
Yeah.
I worked on home videos in the 80s with the Muppets, and Jim Henson and Frank Oz would do these shows like Fozzie Bear teaching you how to tell a joke, and Kermit the Frog teaching you how to ride a bike, and things like that. But after Jim passed away, I was reassigned to Sesame Street. So I worked on Sesame Street in different capacities for about 3 years, 4 years. And I worked on the film Muppets Take Manhattan. So in and out of that. But in the middle of all of that, I mean, we were doing a lot of touring with our puppets. And so there was a lot of things going on, and I was kind of involved in everything, but it all funneled back to what, we were doing with our troupe.
Right. So working for Jim Henson, were you the only African American, or were there more, or minimum?
Well, I think when I first started, I believe that I was, and then a couple of other African Americans came to work, Noel McNeil and Kevin Clash. Kevin Clash went on to become Elmo, and he took that character. That character was just almost non-existent. It was just a puppet, and he gave it life. He gave that puppet life and made it into the iconic character that it became. I mean, his popularity rivaled Kermit the Frog, and so he became, after Jim passed away, he was the puppet captain. So he would be the one who hired us, and just a brilliant, probably one of the best puppeteers out today. So my involvement with Mr. Rogers came a little bit later.
Okay.
He produced a show called Different and the Same, which was a program, it was a limited series that taught children how to cope with racism and bigotry. And from meeting and working with him, one of the episodes of his show was a visit to my studio, which was televised.
Nice. Nice. Very cool. Was that episode 1708?
I guess so.
Yeah, well, I found it.
Okay.
I had to find it.
All right, all right.
So, and then from there, because I have some slides I'm going to show to our viewing audience so they can see some of the things that we're talking about. So then from there, after you left, Jim Henson Company, then you really started focusing on building your own puppet troupe even more, or it was just actually consecutive while, parallel.
We never stopped. We never stopped. And part of me not working with them, after a while, it was conflicting because of what we were doing. And there were a couple of programs I actually turned down. One of them was Between the Lions, which was a program on PBS. But at that same time, they were getting ready to film it. We were getting ready to do Broadway with the Boys Choir of Harlem. And so we were there for several months. It was a limited run, but we were there. We also wound up working with Bill Cosby, and we were opening for a lot of different people. We were an opening act, which was rare. I mean, you didn't see any puppets opening for anybody, and we opened for a lot of singers and performers, comedians.
So that means you had to be good. If they were willing to have you open up for their show, you had to be good. That is awesome. So,
but we became good. We became good because at the same time, we were working in Central Park every weekend. And that was something that developed in the 80s out of necessity because we were funded, and a lot of the funding was turned back because Ronald Reagan had become the president, and he was eliminating and cutting back a lot of the arts programs, primarily Black theater programs and programs that affected us. And so we were caught up in that, and we had an opportunity to perform at a local church, which had an auditorium, which was a beautiful theater. But we were not making money on the weekend, and so we went out to perform in Central Park, and we wound up making a lot of money, and not anticipating it. There would be a lot of people from all over the world, and so we wound up traveling around the world to perform as well as around the country. So we were able to finance ourselves. And so a lot of what we did in terms of opening for other people, it was because they saw us in front of a crowd. And many times our crowds at Central Park, maybe 200, 300 people. And we had an ongoing fan base there. John F. Kennedy used to come down and hang out with us, as well as Madonna used to always come and see us. So we had that type of presence in Central Park. We did movies from there, a lot of TV shows from there, and we became independent. So we didn't rely anymore on finances. We were doing that ourselves,
Nice. And then you were invited to perform abroad and over in Europe, correct? And Africa as well. Where in Europe?
Well, we performed in Spain and Germany, and we've been in Japan, in Singapore, and we were in Singapore. I think we went to Singapore 3 times. So, again, puppetry always exceeded vocabulary, language. So we were able to go into places and not really be able to speak, like we couldn't speak Japanese, but the puppets, the art of puppetry is very popular in a lot of those countries. In those countries, they consider it more of an adult art form than a children's art form.
Amazing. Because, that was going to lead to my next question. When you traveled abroad, did you need an interpreter? But you pretty much answered that question, because I was definitely going to ask you that. Did you ever have to have an interpreter? But amazing. So, and then when you went to Africa, correct? Where did you guys go when you were in Africa?
The troupe didn't go to Africa. I went to Africa.
Oh, okay. You went to Africa. Okay.
Right.
How was that experience?
It was very interesting. It was very interesting, and I brought with me just a little puppet that we used to use here a lot in the United States when we did our theater shows, and so I was over there visiting, so I wasn't really there performing on business, but I brought the puppet with me.
So I would imagine that they were really excited, because they don't see that kind of thing happening too much over there. I would imagine.
My son and his mother were there, and I came to visit, and I spent a week there, and just having a puppet, and they spoke English there. So, but taking a puppet out and speaking with the puppet, and just, the kids would just gravitate towards the puppet. But that's universal. That's all
right.
over, no matter where you go. Children are children, and they're fascinated by puppetry.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. So the next thing that I wanted to ask is, what are some of the pros and cons to being a puppeteer, to even doing puppetry, being in this business?
Well, puppetry doesn't always guarantee an income. It doesn't guarantee making a lot of money. Sometimes you have to supplement what you do. We've been fortunate in that we've been able to make a living as puppeteers. But I teach, I have residency as an artist in residence. I do artwork off on the side. I do a lot of sculptures and paintings that I can sell. And occasionally I build puppets for other people. But mostly becoming just involved with the shows that I do, and teaching puppetry. So,
okay.
You find a way to kind of do that.
Right.
But it requires a dedication, Right. I mean, it could be a hobby. It could be something that you just do on the side. But if you want to do it as a career, you really do have to have a passion for it. Right.
What has been some of the challenges? I'm sure, like you said, it's dealing with you've been successful. You guys were successful as far as knowing how to get the money. But what other challenges come with it? Is it, spacing, size, finding the right stage to hold all your props?
Well, a lot of the challenges come from dispelling people's concept of what a puppet show should be. I mean, we've gone into theaters, and even though we did some, we spoke with the stage manager, and we explained what we need and what we do. We send a diagram of everything. People still think of a puppet show as a little box and little puppets hanging there, whereas we use the entire stage. And we come in there with sets and everything. And sometimes all we use is the lighting. We wear all black with hoods, and you just see the puppets. So it depends on the show. But we travel with a stage manager, sometimes a lighting designer, a sound person. So that's been like one of the challenges. But we've become familiar with how to deal with that. And a lot of times we have some leeway before we have to actually perform. But, we used to travel with this puppet stage that was 25 feet, and it took us about five hours to put the whole thing together. And so sometimes the challenge is that people just think, oh, well, it would take 15 minutes to put it together. But we've always been very elaborate in some of our shows.
Nice. Well, I don't want to keep the audience waiting. I want them to see some of the stuff, some of your images, so they'll see what we've been talking about. And then after that, I'll take a few questions. I'll bring you in for those of you, because I've been seeing some of you all sending me messages. So just hold on, and I'm going to set this up so we can look at this on the screen. Okay. Let's see here. Let me go back. Okay. So here we go. I'm going to turn this around. Okay. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay. And the audience, can you guys see it? Yeah, they can. All right. So this is the puppet Jerry, right?
Right.
Okay.
I
I'm gonna hold it.
I was 8 years old.
You was 8. Okay.
And that's my sister, Imani. And
Okay.
this was at Pratt Institute. This was at preparing for our very first show.
At Pratt Institute?
Yeah.
Okay.
My sisters were very involved with us in the beginning. That's my youngest sister, Kim, at the far left. And
Okay.
Imani is in the middle. She was, for years, our administrative director. She wrote all the proposals, and she wrote a lot of our shows.
Oh,
we had
nice.
a very good working relationship where I would just narrate. I would just kind of talk about an idea that I had, and my sister would just write it down in a script form.
Nice.
And my other sister, Kim, did the choreography for the Jackson 5 puppets when we did the Jackson 5 meets Malcolm X.
Oh, that should have been cool. Okay, let me do the next one.
That was a publicity shot in Brooklyn. And 3 of the guys are still with me. The one on the far left, David Marin, worked with me for a long time. Next to him is Marvin Brown. That's me in the middle. And on the far right is Glengo Allen King.
Nice.
They've been with me since since the late 70s.
Wow, nice. Very nice. Okay.
Here we are with Harold Nicholas of the Nicholas Brothers. We did a show called Waltz of the Stork, and it was directed by Melvin Van Peebles. He wrote and directed it, and we were off Broadway, and it was produced by Woody King.
Oh, okay. What was happening here?
This
I know.
was doing a shoot for the Muppets Take Manhattan, and often what would happen, and that's Jim Henson with Kermit and Frank Oz with Miss Piggy, and that's me with my Temptations T-shirt on. You know, often during lunch breaks, they would do these segments, and I never went to lunch. I always stayed on the set, and as a result of that, I would be asked to provide a right hand to a puppet or help them with whatever they were doing, and that's where I was doing there. I was waiting to take a puppet off of off of Jim's hand.
Nice, nice. I'm trying to keep my hand as still as possible, guys. Oops, wait a minute. Well, hold on. Oh, here we go. Oh no, let's go back. Technicality. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. Okay, so this is episode 1708.
You know, he was a really nice guy, you know, and sometimes you read about stories of people who are not the way that they portray themselves on television, but he was exactly the same. He was a very nice man, and very, very giving. You know, I took my son to my shop when we filmed this, and he spent lunchtime with him. Very nice, but he also produced Different in the Same.
Oh, okay. So that's cool. All right. So let's see. That was
a promo shot with the Crowtations.
Okay. Now, what was happening here?
This was about 3 years ago. We were performing at the University of Connecticut, UConn.
Oh, okay. So what song was he singing then?
I think we were doing a song by the OJs called I Sing My Heart Out.
Oh, okay. I like that song. All right. Oh. Going back. Okay.
You know,
I didn't want to go that far.
We were I was invited to be on a game show that Bill Cosby was the host of after the Cosby Show went off. And the lady who arranged for me to be on the show, Claudette Roper, introduced me to Bill. I had met him earlier when I was working with the Negro Ensemble Company, and Felicia Rashad introduced me to him. But he gave us an opportunity. He put us on network television, and we were scheduled to be part of his show before all of the controversy came up, and NBC canceled the pre-production of the show. But he was very, very helpful for us. He's the one person that gave us that opportunity to be on network television.
Wow, amazing. And let's see here. Okay, let me go back. How was it working with Little Raven? Well, Big Raven now, but back then.
Very professional. She was very professional. Very nice little girl.
She seemed like she is. Now, I want to go back to her picture, but if I can't go back, I'm gonna have to hold on.
Very professional and very nice. This is when we filmed Ransom, and that's Ron Howard, the director, and we were looking at a playback. He allowed us to stage how we wanted to be shot, and we used the song that we wrote and performed ourselves.
And then I think this is, let's see. Let me see if there it is. No, that's the Coca-Cola commercial. There it is. So this is the one you guys perform yourselves?
This is also for the movie Ransom, which starred Mel Gibson and Delroy Lindo, and he was shooting us. That's Ron Howard on the right.
Okay. Nice. Now, this was the Coca-Cola commercial.
Yeah. We had what's interesting is that the guy who directed that was an actual Academy Award winner. He won the Academy Award for Best Cinematography for The Age of Innocence.
I remember that. Oh, nice. So how did that come about? Did they seek you out? Obviously, but
performing in Central Park. Central Park was our best promotional vehicle. We did all of. We were at one point considering having a publicist, but we didn't really need one because everybody saw us, and not only did they see us, they saw us in front of an audience, and the audience was always receptive, you know. So we got all of that. I mean, all of our traveling and everything came from people seeing us perform. So there was very little selling that had to be done by our manager.
Nice. So let's see.
We had a little bit of controversy though with that commercial.
Did you?
Yeah, Coca-Cola was very high on us. They were setting up a whole campaign for us to travel around the country promoting the commercial. We were scheduled to be on the Tonight Show. I think Jay Leno had just taken over from Johnny Carson. It was really, they were really strong about the commercial. It was a very good commercial. And there was one person, this guy, who was the only African-American vice president of Coca-Cola, who objected to the commercial because he said that the crows were stereotypes. And Coca-Cola didn't want to be involved with any controversy. And so they just dropped the whole thing. And it was shown regionally, and they showed it over in Europe. But the campaign that they had scheduled for us here in this country, they just cut it back severely. And I went down to Atlanta to meet with this guy. And I think it was his day in the sun, and he would not relent or anything. He just said that he thought that it was stereotype. And we presented the crows around the world and throughout the country, and we never had anybody feel any type of way negatively towards the Crowtations.
Right. Yeah, because you wouldn't have been able to present them as many places as you did that you were able to. So, okay, so I'm gonna turn back around because I finally got this. Okay, so this is the Crowtations on Good Morning America. Right.
We co-hosted Good Morning America.
You co-hosted Good Morning America.
Yep.
So how did that? Oh, that should have been so cool. Do you have footage of that?
I think so.
Yeah.
We have you know what? We have a lot of footage on VHS, and we've only recently begun to transfer it to digital.
Yeah, you definitely need to have that on digital. So, okay, let me see. All right.
I don't have the series number for it like you do with the.
I probably can find it. Technical, trying to get this thing. Oh, I tell you. Okay, hold on. So, okay, now here, these are the kids. So
what I was doing is that during the commercial break, I would bring the puppets out and kind of kid around with the kids.
Oh, that's nice. Wow. Did it take a lot of preparation? Oh, but you pretty much we just came in like a day.
We knew what we were going to do. We talked with the director, and so we had all of it set up. We brought in a couple of props, a lamppost and a fence.
Nice. Okay. So now this
was a puppet that was the master of ceremonies for a show that we did called Little Davis, which was a fictional account of what happened when Miles Davis first came to 52nd Street in Manhattan. He was a piano player.
Okay. And that's Little Davis.
Yeah, grown up. And we were performing at the Smithsonian Institute.
Okay. At the Smithsonian for that one. Now, this is Benny.
We were performing at the Gene Kelly Billy Strayhorn Theater where were we? In Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. Okay. I can't get the screen. Sorry about this, guys. This keeps. Boy, I tell you, when you're one. Let's go back. Okay. I'll let it play. I'm not gonna touch it. That's the Duke.
That's the Duke from our story called Duke Ellington. It's called Duke's Place.
Uh-huh. Okay. Okay. I stopped it here because I wanted. I know this is when you guys were at the Smithsonian.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Hold on. Okay, so right here you're at the Smithsonian.
Yes, our puppets were inducted into the collection of the Smithsonian in Washington, and they're the only African-American puppets in that collection. And so we were very honored. I didn't really want to give up the puppets, but I realized that it was something that, you know, we were obligated to do, and we were very proud of that. Having that done, having that honor. And so they are there at the Smithsonian.
Nice. Wow. So somebody can, if they go to the Smithsonian, they'll see them. Nice.
No, they're
How
not,
long
they're not on a permanent display. They take them out when they have whatever. If they have an exhibit of puppets or something like that, they'll take them out and exhibit them, but they're not on a permanent exhibit.
Oh, okay then. And so how long did it take?
This is not in the African American Museum. It's in the Smithsonian Museum of Science and History.
Okay. They should be at the African American Museum. At least some of your work should be there. So how long did it take, excuse me, to how long does it normally take to make a typical puppet that size?
It depends. You know, none of them are puppets that I necessarily sit down and work on. The costumes were made by other people. The heads and the arms and everything and the hands were made by me. I guess on the average, each puppet might take about 3 weeks or so.
3 weeks. Okay. All right. So I'm moving on now. Hopefully my screen won't jump around. Okay. Now this. I'm going to play this. I'm going to play this. Oh, go ahead. You can explain, then I'll play it.
This was just an art piece that I did. Each piece is separate, and it's made out of foam core. And I've made some videos that added music to some of the artwork that I've done.
I love this piece. It's 3-dimensional. I just. So here's another one. And about how long does it take to do something like this?
This is a little bit more involved. Each piece is separate, and I don't know, it might have taken me a couple of months to do this.
Oh, wow. Okay, so here's some of your sketches. What was the inspiration for this? Oops.
Just
Let me stop it.
just drawing.
Just drawing.
The crows, I've made posters of them. This was a poster. And when we were at the Museum of the City of New York, we sold some of the posters in the gift shop.
Okay. Let's see. I'm almost down to the end. I'm gonna bring some people who wants to ask some questions. Let's see. Shaka Khan. Was that Otis?
Yeah, that's the first version of Otis.
Okay. And this is the children's story that you've written, right?
Right. Hakeem and Gretel.
Okay. Okay. So that's pretty much the end of our slide. What I want to talk about now is, let me bring this back. Let me bring it back to me. Here we are. Okay. So thank you. Thank you for sharing those with us. The question I wanted, do we still have time? Do you still have time?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, okay. All right. So some you all were sending me questions, and I'm going to bring on Philip. Are you there? Because he was one of the first. Let's see. Let's see. I know he sent me a question, wanted to know. Oh, okay. Philip?
Yes.
Okay, so I have you in the room so you can ask the master puppeteer himself.
Well, first of all, I want to say this is exciting. This has been great about Puppeteers, and I just want to ask one thing I was curious about. I know you said your favorite. Who were some of the other people that helped you get into the business?
Well, you know, in New York City, when I was younger, there were a host of puppeteers on television, and one of my favorites was a guy named Chuck McCann, who I actually met when I was about 10 years old. And I went to his show and watched him put on shows. And so I learned and watched his show every day. I learned a lot from watching and also from reading. I had a lot of puppet books. Sandy Becker was another puppeteer that was on television a lot. And then Jim Henson, you know, even though Jim came a little bit later, he wasn't really around when I was like really little, when I was first starting this out. But you know, he was somebody who was very innovative, and so even when I wasn't doing any more shows, I watched him. But I would say Bill Baird, Paul Winchell, and Jerry Mahoney, Edgar Bergen, Charlie McCarthy. I had met Edgar Bergen when I was a little kid, and it taught me how to not step on the humanity of the puppets. In other words, not try to compete with the puppets, let the puppets live and kind of step back a little bit.
Okay, now one other question. Are you working on something now, or is there something that you have in the works? So
I'm working on a show now called Jazzoetry, and it's a mystical story told through jazz. And so the climax, it's going to be in 3 acts, and the last act will be Hakeem and Gretel told with the music of Duke Ellington. So hopefully we'll have that by the end of next year.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Let's see. Anyone else wants to come in and join in the room? Let's see. Okay. Debbie? Okay. Let's see if I can get Debbie in here. Joy.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi, Debbie.
Hi, Sandra.
It's me, Brad.
Hi, Brad.
Hi.
Well, my question is, how did Puppeteer come to Sesame Street, and how did they become the Muppets?
Well, the Muppets began in the early 60s, the late 50s. Jim Henson had a local TV show on in Maryland called Sam and Friends. And the success of that program led him to do commercials. There was a guy on television called Jimmy Dean who had one of Jim's puppets as a regular on the show every week. And then also Ed Sullivan. Remember Ed Sullivan?
Yeah, I do. I
Ed
remember.
Sullivan was a big fan of Jim Henson. And so a lot of times, now this is what I did see as a kid, whenever he performed on Ed Sullivan, and it was so unconventional. I mean, it was like puppetry from a whole different perspective, and it wasn't just for children. You know, that's one of the pitfalls of, you asked me what are the limitations here in New York, in the United States, and that is many people still see it as a purely children's form of entertainment, and in Europe it's comparable to ballet, legitimate theater. I mean, you know, it's not looked on that scale at all. So we see a little bit of a breakthrough with Julie Taymor and The Lion King, but Jim came through that, and then when Sesame Street came, they went to Jim. The Children's Television Workshop went to Jim, and he developed those characters, which gave him juice, so to speak, to come up and do the Muppet Show. So each project that he did evolved and allowed him to go to the next level. You know, I think if he was still alive today, we would be seeing something in puppetry that we still don't see today. That's how innovative he was. I mean, he was way beyond. You know, he passed away in 1990. You know, I just wonder where he would be today.
It's very educational and also inspiring. What are some of the best TV shows that they had puppetry in?
Well, Chuck McCann in the 60s, Chuck McCann in New York had two local shows that he did. They had one Monday through Friday, and the other one was on the weekend. But there was so many on television. You know, there was Shari Lewis and Lamb Chop. Lamb Chop. There were Paul and Mary Ritz, who had a show on in the mornings, Monday through Friday. Kukla, Fran, and Ollie, remember them? Mm-hmm. You know, and you know, they personified characters. Each character of the Kuklapolitans were developed, and they were not designed for children, but yet children could watch it. But you know, they were more of an adult theater.
Nice.
Well, thank you.
So,
thank you for coming on and sharing.
Some other people I think will come. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No,
go ahead.
Thank you for coming on and sharing.
Thank you, my pleasure.
And very inspiring and educational. Thank you.
So I believe there's some more people that want to come in the room and want to ask you some questions. For those of you who want to, I'm going to bring you in. So I'm going to say goodbye to now. To Phil and Debbie, but you don't have to leave. You can still leave. Listen, I just got to make room for somebody else.
Okay.
Okay. Don't go nowhere.
All right. Thanks.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Love you guys. Bye. Okay. Hold on. Let's see. Let's see here. Okay. There we go. Let's see. I'm gonna remove. Okay. Okay. And remove. Okay. And there's, there's somebody that I really want you to meet that's on here because she's a fellow New Yorker and she has a strong theater background. And she was one of the first few people that I had told her about you. And so, and she's on here. Let's see. Louise, can I bring you in? If you're there, if you're listening, say yes, and I'll bring you in. Let's see. Let me see if I can do this. I have until, I don't know if Louise is still, I know she's there, but let's see. I'm going to put her on here. Okay. Meanwhile, I'm going to bring, there's another friend that's waiting. I'm going to bring her in. Okay. Boy, Shay, I'm bringing you in. Okay. Let's see if she's going to pick up. It shows that she's still listening, but oh, there is she. There she is. She is, Brad, she is one of my very good sisters who's from Chicago as well. But we met out here. And we met, this is Dr. Boucher.
Oh my God, I'm so excited to be with you guys. This is so interesting, and I'm really, really happy to learn more. And my question, you talked about Woody Allen. I worked with Woody Allen in California doing theater.
Really?
His wardrobe, yeah. I want to know, how do you encourage the younger generation to kind of go into puppetry and even using the technology of AI? Do you see those two kind of coming together?
That's a good question. I haven't really given it any thought about AI, but I was telling Sandra that I'm experiencing this renaissance of young Black people coming into puppetry. And for me, it's very exciting. And it's not unlike what we've done in other art forms. We're taking it and making it our own. Puppetry for a long time has been evaluated and critiqued on a European status. And, puppetry is very big in Japan. But I think that we're going through this type of renaissance that's not unlike jazz coming into play. When jazz came in, we took some music and we made it our own. Yeah. Louis Armstrong took vocals that was more operatic without any feeling, and he changed the whole nature of how you express yourself in song. Alvin Ailey opened up the doors to a new form of dance that was not restricted to European standards. And Spike Lee decided he was going to make a movie based on his own vision. And so I see puppetry going through that same period, and to me it's just very exciting. So I really encourage to do what you feel and not allow yourself to be restricted by what you've seen on television. We have our own sense of humor. We have our own movement that we can apply to animating a figure. We have our own voices. We have our own music.
Yeah.
And so all of that is part of what makes puppetry come alive. And I think that, we're going to see some really exciting things in the future, in the near future.
Awesome. Awesome. Boysha, are you still there? I think something is going with her. Okay, there she is.
Oh, that's wonderful. I'm looking forward to that. You talked about the Black Panther. I don't want to take one more question. Just the Black Panther. I'm here. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. So you talked about the Black Panther, and I'm really, really interested in, the something based around the Black Panther, because I think a lot of people.
I can hear you now. Can you hear Brad?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay, so sorry. Yeah, so I was talking about the Black Panther. How do we keep in its authentic self, with even dealing with puppetry? How does that come alive still to keep that story, the ancestral story of the Black Panther and the movement alive? Because we're still dealing with a lot of those things that they were fighting for. But how do we keep it alive, but at the same time make it a little bit light so people will be able to digest it? Because it seems like we live in a very sensitive time that everything that you say, even if it's true, it's misunderstood.
The Black Panther Party was a victim of a program by the government to
Yes.
tear it down. And as a result, we wound up fighting among ourselves without realizing
Mm-hmm.
that it was all part of a program. And unfortunately, a lot of people were killed. The Black Panther
Yeah.
Party was an uncompromising organization. They believed in self-defense and they believed in self-determination. And it came out of a small office in Oakland. It grew, and then it came back to a local organization. It went through a lot of changes. A lot of people wound up in jail. One of my good friends has been in jail since the 80s, Mumia.
Mm.
Mumia
Yeah, yeah,
is a very
yeah.
good friend of
From
mine.
Philly.
Right.
Yes.
And so it's hard. I think that the movie that came out a couple of years ago, The Black Judas, I think that probably depicted a daily life within the Black Panther Party, but it was tragic because the Fred Hampton character was assassinated. So it's a raw feeling, and I think just talking about the Panthers and keeping it going, but I don't see any way to lighten the story. It was very serious. A lot of people went to jail. A lot of people died because they believed in that. And, we felt kind of like double crossed at times, but, it was an organization that had to be reckoned with. In California, when they stormed Sacramento with guns, it was legal for you to have a gun, and so Bobby Seale and the rest of the Panthers, they went into the State House with guns. 5 days later, they had gun control that restricted people from carrying guns. I always say that the best way to have gun control now is to have Reverend Sharpton go on television and advocate every black people get a gun. And I think we would see gun control laws in a month. But that's my
That's
I would
why.
get too controversial.
You didn't talk to him about that. Oh, it is so wonderful to have joined you guys. Sandra, it's always great to see you, of course.
Yes,
I can't wait
we
till
must
you
do
come to
that.
Chicago.
Brett, she's a fellow author too, as well, and
Oh,
she's
really?
written a great book. I have to bring you on, Bush.
Wow, I would watch that.
Hey.
Yeah, she has written this awesome book. I'm looking for. I had it on my coffee table, but what's what does it tell? Go ahead, plug.
Faces behind these systems.
Yeah.
3 felonies without committing a single crime.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very. It
The
should be
case
made.
is in the Supreme Court right now in California, and they, of course, are delaying it, which is what they do. They try to weigh you out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some pretty deep stuff.
Yeah. Very, 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 very. We have to come back and discuss that.
Yeah. We do.
Well, thank you, Boishe, for tuning in.
Thank you.
Tuning
Thank you
in.
for coming.
Nice to meet you, sir.
Nice meeting you
Thank
too.
you, Sandy. All right,
Okay.
thank you.
We shall talk.
Yes.
Love you, sis. Okay.
Love you.
Bye-bye. Let me. Okay. Okay. So, if anyone else have any more questions, or if you want to come in to the chat, let me know. I'll plug you in. Thank you. I know Lori joined tonight. Lori's another, she's a theater person, creator, writer. She's working on a book presently. It's a children's book. So you guys have that in common. I can't wait till it comes out. Let's see, who else is on here? It's a few people. She said beautiful artwork. She likes your artwork. Wow, I hope, Dr. Julie, I'm sorry. Dr. Julie Soul Healer, hi. She says, wow, I hope he asks for your autograph. For whose autograph?
Your autograph.
My autograph. Everybody that, when you're cool with me, you don't need no autograph. Why? No. Let's see. Someone says, okay, Woody, who else? Hi, T. She says yes. Anybody else want to come on? I answered that question. Someone asked, she asked what countries, this is a good question. Before she came on, but we didn't get to ask, but I'll ask now. She wanted to know, what was the experience like compared to performing your puppetry overseas versus it is in the United States?
I think our audiences were almost exclusively adult. And so, and we were in Spain. We toured the country of Spain, but our last leg up there, we were in Spain for 3 weeks. I think the last few days we were in a festival, a puppet festival. So we were one of the performers with that. But we traveled all over Spain, and I think we were kind of unique because we were Black. So there was that curiosity. But there's become a host of black puppeteers in Africa, in some of the African countries, and puppetry has its roots there. The statues would be animated sometimes by their witch doctors, for lack of a better word, and they had a history of making them come alive, which is basically what puppetry is, animating an inanimate figure. So it was interesting. But we had already been used to that because we worked in a lot of clubs and we opened for a lot of people. It's just a language thing, and we need to be able to get across with the language.
Wow. Okay. So I know you mentioned that you have you have an exhibit coming up, and you have another show next year, right?
Right. The exhibit is part of the show. The exhibit is it will be like the making of the show. And it will feature what's called toy theater, which is a scale model of a story. So we're going to tell the story of jazz-oetry through that. Jazz-oetry will tell some of the stories of our history. There's one segment which is by Art Blakey that will depict a freedom ride in the 60s and a confrontation with the police.
So we can expect to hear more about that later on.
Yeah.
Sometime this year. That's exciting. What do you feel like is the next, and I guess this may be the last question I'll ask because it's been a while, but what do you see, or what would you like to see, let me ask that, take place in the world of puppetry, like within the next 3 years?
A blossoming of this renaissance of Black puppetry. I would like to see that. I would like to see a festival of performances, and I'm really looking forward to that. There's a friend of mine, Bruce Cannon, and Bruce Cannon is the artistic director of the Swedish Puppet Theater in Central Park. And for a long time, it was run and designed and produced by certain people. And when he took it over, it was a whole different energy. And so, he's there and he's continuing that. And he is also the president of the Puppeteers of Greater New York, Puppetry Guild of Greater New York. So, we're getting into this, and I'm looking forward to that type of festival. He and I were talking about that, but I'm hoping to see that soon. John Bell up at UConn had an exhibit of black puppeteers, and it was the exhibit was fantastic, and it brought together African American puppeteers from around the country. And so we had a chance to meet each other and look at each other's work and talk shop with each other. That's what I hope to see more of.
Nice. And in terms of number, just to estimate it, but how many would you say there are? At least 10,000 or 100,000 or less?
I don't know. So many. I think there are a lot of children, a lot of a lot of black children, a lot of young people who are in college. And I think that they're all experimenting, and I think it's an open field for us. And I think we're going to see some new concepts in puppetry that we've never seen before. It's going to excite us.
Do you think there's a possibility, and this, I'll make this the last, that there could be like a puppetry school for African American kids or kids of color?
Perhaps, but I think it all depends on the passion you have for the art. A jazz musician has to learn how to play the music, and I don't think that necessarily means it has to be taught by a black musician.
Exactly.
I think you need to, understand what you're doing, and then we take it to that level, and we explore and we let our instincts carry on. A black musician may choose to be in the pit of a Broadway show, but
right.
for jazz, you have to have that compassion, and explore. We've had an opportunity to work with Ron Carter, who's one of the premier jazz. He played with Miles Davis, Freddie Hubbard, and just about everybody in jazz. So I hope to see a lot of that.
Okay. Well, awesome. I'm not going to hold you any longer. We've gone actually an hour and a half, it seems like.
How about that?
So I hope we've answered, or you've answered. I know you've answered my questions, and for those that came on, I believe you've answered their questions. And I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us. And people can reach me on Facebook and on Instagram, and I'll be, more than willing to help them out if they're looking to explore the art of puppetry, or they're interested in any of the artwork or anything. Just get in contact. Awesome.
So on Instagram, Brad's handle is at Satchmo_13. So it's actually on the drop promo. Again, it's at Satchmo, SATCHMO_13, and Facebook is Brad Brewer.
Right.
Okay. Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you. I had fun doing it. Thank you, Sonia.
I had fun too. I hope everybody had fun listening, and I'm sure they're going to give me their feedback afterwards, those that know me. All right. Well, thank you so much, and you have a blessed, lovely evening, and I look forward to talking to you again.
All right. Take care.
Okay, take care. Good night. Everyone, thank you so much for coming to join into the room. And I so appreciate you guys showing up. And for those who don't know me, I thank you as well for tuning in. This is just the first of conversations that I'm going to be having. I plan to do more of them and bring more interesting guests to share their story, share their life, you know, and just build from there. It's a community of artistic people that are out there, and just people who have interesting stories to tell. So I appreciate you guys. I pray you have a wonderful, blessed, lovely evening. Until next time, see you soon.